The Trailblazers quite literally limp into the All-Star break. Injuries are hitting again. They lost 3 in a row. Is the postseason dream dead? But on a positive side, Donovan Clingan shines. All of that and more on the Blazer Focus podcast. I am Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian, and I'm joined by Craig Birnbach. Craig, we didn't talk last week after the trade deadline because nothing happened.
To talk about.
Nothing happened. But the Blazers went out and won a couple more games. They'd won 10 of 11 to get to within 2.5 of the plan, which is just still mind-blowing. But then they lost 3 in a row. Very predictable losses at Minnesota, although Minnesota was missing a bunch of good guys,
that was not
including Anthony Edwards.
Good team.
The Blazers should have won that game, but whatever. You knew they were going to lose to Denver, and they did. They got smoked, and they showed some heart last night without 4 key players. Ayton, Williams, Grant, and Scoot were out. Ayton out 4 weeks. He'll miss 3 weeks of actual game action after the All-Star break. But let's start here, Craig. With the 3 losses, they're now 4.5 back of 10th going into Wednesday night. Golden State plays tonight. I can't remember against who. I think the Pelicans maybe. And if they win that, then the Blazers would be 5 games back. Do you believe that 3-game stretch pretty much iced this team out of having a realistic run at the play-in with 27 games to go?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Now,
But I, to be honest, I thought there was I didn't think they were going to get in the play-in anyway. I mean, we talked about it. It was a nice little something for fans to enjoy. But what I don't know. As I kept saying, like, it sucks when you're in the position where winning could hurt you. And this might be a situation where winning hurts them.
Yeah. Well, even when they were winning, my thing was they got that Minnesota, Denver, right? And if they go into that and they go 0-3 or 1-2, and someone they're chasing, because you're chasing 4 or 5 teams, wins 2 or 3 in a row, then boom, all of a sudden you go from 2.5 to 4.5, 5. You got the Lakers' first game coming back when you get the All-Star break. And so making up 5 games against, Curry and Butler, against even San Antonio, which they're only a couple games behind San Antonio, but they added De'Aaron Fox. It's Dallas might fall a little bit with Anthony Davis out for a while, but it's tough to make up that many games with 27 to go when you're not going to win 10 of 11 the rest of the year, right? So yes, the dream is pretty much dead, but it was fun while it lasted. I'm not going to lie, man. It was just to be able to look at the standings and go, hey, they're only 2.5 or they're 3.5, or if they win this, was just fun to do for the first time in 2 years. So I enjoyed it.
Winning,
and maybe some fans enjoyed it.
The Moda Center was
jumping. Yep. But like you said, it kind of hurts you. But before we get to that, before we get to tank or don't tank or where this is going and why it hurt, let's just jump on this real quick, because everything ties together. Every segment I had on here, they kind of blend together. So the injuries have hit again. Ayton out 4 weeks. They're not going to win a lot of games without Ayton. I'm sorry. And I don't care if Kling is not going to be able to go 20-7 and 17-20 on a consistent basis. He's not going to be able to give you 30, 35 minutes a night and be consistent because he just doesn't have the conditioning yet. So that, to me, above all else, just erases everything.
Especially
Williams is unreliable as well.
Williams out.
Yeah, he's going to be unreliable as well, clearly. And then Scoot, sprained ankle. I mean, we haven't heard a definitive word yet on that, but that he could be back for the Lakers. He's going to miss All-Star weekend, Friday in the Rising Stars game. He's not going to play with Tumani Kamara. So we'll see how long that lasts. And then, of course, Grant. Grant has knee soreness. What I'm saying here is that these are the types of things that at this time of year could very easily be stretch injuries like they've done in the past, or someone has an ankle and it becomes 6 weeks. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do after the break. If they say, okay, since we lost these 3 in a row, we're realistic out of it. Do we just manipulate the situation as we've done the previous 3 seasons to try and fall as far as possible? Which brings us to the next question. Should they start a full-on tank or continue to try and play hard and try and win?
I mean,
and play guys. The players are always going to play hard. I mean, play enough guys to really try and win as opposed to sitting guys out.
So, how I felt all along, and nothing has changed other than, again, winning 10 of 11 was fun, but it hurts you. And this is part of where I feel there's no real solid direction in the rebuild or cornerstones in the rebuild.
There was though, but kind of. But anyway, go ahead, finish. I'll let you finish.
So I've told you from the beginning, I didn't want playing Grant and playing Williams makes very little sense anyway. And they were playing inconsistently anyway. So it's not a huge difference. I mean, Grant's missed a bunch of games. Williams has missed a bunch of games already. Like them playing doesn't matter to me. They got to get off those contracts. They got to get rid of them at some point. So Ayton being injured stinks because there is a potential he could be a part of the future. I see no place, and I know you kind of reluctantly agree with me on these sometimes, like, but now, like, they like, because you're like, well, maybe, and then you're like, oh no, you're right, they're too old, like, or their contracts don't fit. Jeremy Grant's contract's terrible, and it's hard to move, but he's not good enough to play for you long term. No, like, what's the point? You don't want to play him in front of Kamara and Denny. Like, he's not that good. It's not like you got an all-star in front of them. I think Denny's been better. So why do I want Grant out there? The only reason is to convince people that they want him. Well, they didn't get to move him this time, so now they got to wait till the summer anyway. So I don't care. Personally, I don't want him to play. Nice guy. I feel for him because why do you want to be other than the $35 million a year? That I don't feel. That's all right. And Williams is too injury prone and too short of a contract to matter to you. So I'd rather, now you have to play him though, because you don't have a backup center. I mean, they were playing Tomani at center last night. You know what I mean? Like at times. I mean, I don't know why Reed's not playing.
Jabari came up big.
He did, and he's 6'7", so not really a center, right? So I just think the tank's on whether you like it or not. I mean,
Yeah,
but I say
by default.
But you're going to talk about it later. Your coach has no incentive to tank. No incentive to tank right now. He's a lame duck when you have a team option. So the only incentive he has is if you give him an extension and tell him tank.
Right.
I mean, that's part of the problem here is like you have a coach whose record is so bad that if you didn't see any of these games and you just looked at the statistics, you'd be like, well, that might be the worst coach in NBA history. And he has no incentive to keep losing if they're not going to invest in him. And you did a great article on his future. And I felt that Chauncey just showed his, intelligence because he walked that balance beam with you so beautifully. I want to be here, but hey, it's up to them. And I've always had my back against the wall, so I don't mind being lame duck because I'm just going to do what I've always done, which is move forward and succeed. Well, succeeding might hurt your team's overall, ability to get good players. But why would he care right now? So that to me, like you said, everything comes together. I say go try to win with the young guys, do the best you can because you're not going to get into that 1, 2, 3, the top level to increase your odds enough to tank completely because you just won too many darn games.
So, man, this is one of the most convoluted things I've ever covered in sports, I think. And it's so hard. Like everyone out there has a position that's literally both right and wrong.
Right.
Because everything's all tangled. So the direction entering this season was we want a shot at Cooper Flag. We don't believe this roster can win enough games to not give us a legit shot. But we want Chauncey to develop and show improvement. One of the things we want to see is don't have a lot of blowouts. Well, it's kind of difficult to be bad enough to lose 55 to 60 games and not get your doors blown off a lot. The math doesn't work. If you're shooting poorly and you turn over the ball too much and you play mediocre defense bad enough to win to 27, 25 games, there's no way you're not going to get your asses kicked on some nights by teams that are way better than you. It's impossible. So that whole thing never worked. Now, if you said we want to be 500 and eliminate some blowouts, that makes sense. So I went back and I looked at OKC. I'm going to always compare everything that's been going on to OKC because their coach was put in the exact same situation Chauncey was. And they stunk. They won in the 20s, but they stuck with it. Then they won 40. Then boom, last year they had the second best record in the league. This year they have the best. Now, along the way, they got Chet Holmgren because they got that top 3 pick, right? Which the Blazers are probably blowing right now. Although
and they got SGA.
Right. They had him coming in. Now,
but they knew they had a cornerstone.
Well, they believed. They didn't know for sure
they were right.
This guy.
But they were right.
Right. But I went back. So last year, with 370 missed games, the Blazers lost 14 games by 20 or more. I went back and looked at that first year where they won 20-something in a shortened season, 72-game season. They lost 20 games by 20 or more. So again, it's a bad team. You're going to lose a lot of games. They did nothing to change this season, really, other than add Denny and then, Klingon, I guess, in draft. So to me, it was just counterintuitive that you wanted to get better and improve enough on defense to show something to Bert and Jody while also still playing your way into getting a top pick. So they were on their way to at least playing for the pick, although the defense wasn't necessarily improving and the team was still pretty bad and Scoot was struggling and Shaden was struggling. But then pressure was applied to Billups in January.
Yep.
He received some pressure like we gotta look better. For whom? Well, for Bert and Jody. Okay, but what are we? Wait, what? What are we doing? If we're trying to look better, but how much better? And so Chauncey made changes. He made changes in the lineup. He made changes in the rotation. I put in my story that I ran on OregonLive today. Their defensive rate, or they were giving up 120 points per game from December something to the day they dropped Sharp from the lineup, because Sharp and Scoot were struggling defensively. You change the lineup, boom, your defensive rating goes way down. Yeah, you want to go down, and all of a sudden they win 10 of 11. So Chauncey did his job as a coach, but at the detriment of the bigger picture. And you can't blame Chauncey. Like, fans are literally blame Chauncey's an idiot. Why is he playing? Chauncey's trying to win for his life, his livelihood as a coach.
Right.
To ask Chauncey, but to ask Chauncey as a fan, we want to lose. You can't. You can't ask him to do that. Go ahead.
When he was losing, the same fan said fire him because he's the worst
he wasn't
game coach ever.
Players. I know. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Can't win.
He sucks. He can't win. He's winning too much. He's not developing these guys. Oh my gosh, Scoot's blowing up. What do we want from these guys? So the problem now is that no one can, that 10 of 11, no one can deny that you didn't see development. The defense was the best in the league.
Yep.
Ayton showed up. Scoot showed up. Sharp was showing up, coming off the bench. Kamara and everything worked. And they beat good teams, healthy teams. The Suns, Durant and Booker. They beat Dame and Giannis. They beat the Pacers with all three. They shut Halliburton down 0 points. Who else did they beat on the way before going on the trip? They beat Boncaro and Wagner, and there was another good team. I can't remember all the teams they beat.
Orlando.
Right. They beat Orlando twice. So it's so now you're in a situation. So here's the thing where we come back to like the Grant Anthony thing. If this crew were to come back next year and they truly have turned the corner as a group, by turn the corner, I mean, you're no longer in a position to go into a season tanking or expecting to get a top 5 pick. You got to go in next year thinking we could be like OKC was in year 3 and be 500 and be in the playoff mix. Well, I'm just saying, if you've gone from
but for what to one end
to middle of the road, now you can't go in the next season tanking because you're too good. So then what you have to do is you have to make roster moves with the idea of advancing things, not bringing things back. Because your opportunity to bring things back and stink and get a high pick may be gone unless you get lucky like Atlanta did in the lottery, right? So they're in this complete quagmire of mess where you've painted yourself into a corner unless you get lucky and win the lottery with a 5 or 6% chance. So I don't know, man. It's
so
wild.
here's the thing.
So here's who I
Go
blame.
ahead.
One more thing. Here's who I blame. I blame Bert and Jody. Period. You
I'm fine
got
with that.
Cronin out there. You got Cronin out there not knowing what his future is.
Yep.
You got Billups out there not knowing what his future is. And so Billups has no choice but to do everything he can that's counterintuitive to what you need bigger picture. Had you given him an extension, then maybe you can manipulate things a little differently. But you
Definitely.
didn't. But you didn't.
Definitely.
And now you're in a situation where if you let that guy go and you had the 9th pick in the draft, how dumb do you look? Sorry, no offense. These people aren't dumb, but how ridiculous does this entire situation look? You let that man crush your dreams of getting Cooper Flagg because you painted him into a corner. And no one puts Baby in the corner. No, I'm just kidding. So, no one puts Billups in a corner. Anyway, you can respond.
So I agree with pretty much everything you say, because I've been saying it from the get-go.
Yeah.
That the other problem you have, though, is the roster that you have and what you have not done, with the players that you got to trade and didn't trade aren't worth enough to get you something. And what you don't have is cornerstones that you can bank on. So you talked about uncertain futures. When you look at the Blazers roster, to me, you go down the list, Denny and Kamara are the only two dudes that I could say have certain futures.
All right, can I just stick a balloon in here? Have you seen that new dating show they did with the balloons? I want to
I don't.
pop your balloon. Denny, 2 of 9, 6 points. 3 of 6, 9 points.
I'm not saying he's great, but his contract is a place where you're not moving that. And you gave up first-round draft picks to get him. I'm not saying he's going to be a star. I'm just saying he's on the team.
Moving forward, yes. Cronin loves that. I made a joke with Cronin for the season that, like, do you go to bed at night cuddling the contract?
Yes.
Because it's the perfect contract.
This has nothing to do with me thinking that they're the greatest thing in the world, even though I do think Denny's the greatest thing in the world. But I'm just saying, like, I'm just saying when you look at it, Jeremy Grant, he has no idea what his future is. Ayton, no idea what his future is. Your guy. I mean, how does Simons know what his future is? Doesn't know. Now, if we move Robert Williams, no, what is his future? He doesn't know. Not with the Blazers, probably. And then we get to the Klingon, fine. He just got, I'm putting him, he's got a little bit. Scoot, we're still not sure. We're still not sure if he's a star in the making or one of the worst offensive players in the NBA. Shane Sharp, I'm sorry. It's been a bad year for him. Getting benched on a bad team when you're the 7th overall pick in year 3, I don't care if you've only played a season's worth of basketball when you add it all up. It's not good. When your coach says, your defense is so bad that I can't play you, it's not good. He hasn't.
I can't start you. He plays them.
I'm sorry, right. Can't start. But on this team. So his future is not certain. That's problematic.
He's shooting 31% on threes, which is very disappointing. He shot 36 as a rookie. Yeah.
It's bad. And his shot selection is not good. He makes a lot of them, but he takes shots that stars should take. And the pressure that he has.
He's been given that green light, though.
And I'm okay with some of the green light, but not all of it. I'm just saying he's not. You watch Kamara and basketball IQ, it just blows your brain off. You know what I mean? Like, the guy knows everything that's going to happen before it happens. It's insane what he can do. Even on the offensive end, he's in the right spot and doing all that. They talk about Chris Murray always doing the right thing. You do not say that about Shaden Sharp on either side of the basketball. Chauncey Billups is not like, that guy does everything right. He's like, you don't do enough right for me to feel confident in our 7th overall pick in his 3rd year to start him. And clearly he did this for a reason. It wasn't just because of, it was to make a point. Like,
wake him up.
I have been told I need to do better. Well, guess what? You are not good. You don't play the way I need you to play. You're not smart enough on the court for me to play you all the time. So I just think there's so much uncertainty, and I don't think they have the pieces think they have the pieces to be mediocre.
See, I
And
disagree.
you think they have the pieces to be mediocre? Beyond mediocre?
Oh, I think if they came back in the next season with this exact same roster, I think they would play 500 ball.
Right. That's mediocre. I'm with you.
I thought you
100%.
said they didn't. I thought you said they didn't have the pieces to be mediocre.
No, they have. Right now, their best case scenario is mediocre.
Right.
The whole reason why you blew it up is because you said mediocre and not even mediocre. Let's be clear. The Blazers were not mediocre for a decade. They were good.
Right.
They just didn't win a championship. They just didn't get to the finals. They almost did, but they weren't mediocre. They were a consistent playoff team that battled for 50 wins almost every year.
Right.
And you said, nah, like that, nah, let's start over and go try to be a championship team. And some of the fan base was like, yeah, I'm sick and tired of not winning a championship. I'm sick and tired of losing in the second round of the playoffs. Well, now guess what? Your best case scenario next year is to make a play-in or battle for a last playoff spot. No, you can't contend and not see the pathway yet because you don't have Cooper Flag and you don't have SGA and you don't have, what Minnesota has in Edwards. You don't have that guy that you're like, well, we just got to put the backpack on this dude. And you're not going to Jalen Brunson it, right? Because no one signs with you. As bad as the Knicks were getting free agents for a long time, they got him. And they did the right pick, right? They picked a guy that no one knew. Not enough people knew, oh, that guy's an all NBA player. So, yeah, you could get lucky and get that all-NBA player at pick 11. It's not unheard of. But it's just luck now. You haven't built up the resources to be able to make a trade that will get that player yet. And you were supposed to get it with 3 lottery picks. I mean, that's the truth. Like you took 3 in the top 10. You're hoping for one of them, right? And so far, we're still hoping. We know Klingon's not going to be. I mean, I guess could he be Could he be Jokic? Yeah, nobody's Jokic. It's crazy. I think he's going to be what he's going to be, but I'm starting to doubt Shaedon Sharpe now. And coming into the season, that was my big hope. Yep. And now I don't feel that hope. I'm worried. And I'm putting more eggs in the scoop basket. And I don't really I don't think those eggs are safe, But that's the part.
I believe 100% that we will never see a Blazers team anywhere near contending if their best 2 players are Scoot and Sharpe. And I think that
sucks.
Almost a lot. Well, yeah, because they'd have to be as a duo as good as Dame and CJ, who had 1 year where they made the West Finals, but they were never truly contenders. So do I think Scoot and Sharpe are going to be, is their floor Dame and CJ? I can't see one of them being Dame right now, but it's early though, right? Because Dame at this age was at Weber State. Right. So we can't sit here and say what Scoot's going to be at 24, what Shaedon's going to be at 24. So we have to give them time and be fair. And just like, we came in with high hopes for Sharpe and worried about Scoot, and now we have better hopes for Scoot and worried about Sharpe. That changed in 4 months.
Obviously.
So everything could change on a dime. By this time next year, it could be like, oh my God, Sharpe's an all-star, and Scoot just barely missed it. So
he's got the athletic ability.
Yeah, give them time to grow and develop. We can't jump on anything too soon. If I had to bet money, I would say, yeah, those 2 can't be your best 2 players, and you're contending for anything at this point. So then you have to find a way to find that alpha guy, that true all-star. And if you can't get it in the draft, we know from history, in Portland, you're probably not going to get him. And that's going to be a problem moving forward. That said,
right, there is possibilities to make the right trade for the right player at like the SGA trade. You know what I mean? Like, obviously you had to have big pieces to get that, But it's not unheard of to find the right with the
Yeah,
right.
but
You got to
yeah,
get
I hear what
lucky
you're
too,
saying, but you got to get lucky. And you got
and you have to have parts that people want,
exactly. They got
and they don't have
SGA
that.
and picks because they had Paul George, you know. So
Yes,
now, okay, so let's shift to the All
but
Star.
that's
Excuse
why
me.
we go back to your point, and I hate to do this, but that's why the Dame trade, as you said, you weren't happy. You didn't think it was enough because it all
Right,
fell
because
on
you
Aiton.
didn't get a young, promising star, and Aiton was
Yep.
the best player you got, and you're banking on picks, and most of the picks are gone. You do have hope with the Bucks pick in 2029,
Right, but
you
that's
know.
like
So like, yeah, I
insane.
know. So but here's the thing: the pick and those swaps have a lot of value, which has been written about. CBS Sportsline or whatever, CBSSports.com did a story on it. That the Bucks pick in 2029, I think it is the most valuable pick out there or whatever. So can you package that pick and other
Hope
things
so.
with Grant to get a star back this summer, the next summer? That's what you're sort of hoping to do in the next couple of years. So, all hope isn't lost, obviously, and anything can happen. We'll see. But the fact that they blew up this opportunity to have a really strong chance of getting a top 3 pick, everyone has a right to be disappointed about that. Okay, trade deadline. Man, people were crying at the deadline, man. I swear. The funniest thing for me at every trade deadline, or even with my fellow brethren, Bulls fans were whining too. There's always this assumption that there was this deal on the table, man. You could have gotten 8 first-round picks, 2 swaps, 2 young players for Grant and Simons, and Cronin said no. I don't believe that at all. In this environment, in this climate, I believe the best offers they had, well, I've been told this, were, yeah, we'll make a move because we like Grant or Simons better than these other 2 guys who have equally mediocre contracts, and we'll toss you a couple second-round picks. Well, why are you taking back bad contracts for lesser players for second-round picks? And only 7 first-round picks were exchanged. The entire flurry of trades with all that activity, first-round picks were like held on to as gold. So they couldn't extract first-round picks from people. So all these complaints about they should have done, is based on nothing other than the fantasies that fly through people's heads as to what was available. I believe nothing great was available. I also believe you don't have to making a trade at the deadline is not imperative unless you are trying to reshape your team for a run that year. And Cronin talked about 2022. They tried to get Grant from Detroit. It failed. They got him 4 months later. Last year, they tried to get Denny from Washington at the deadline. It failed. They got him on draft day. So let's see what happens in the future based on conversations they had, which Cronin said there were some things that were close, but not necessarily near the finish line. But they had some good discussions. And let's see if something comes out of those in the summer without judging them harshly now, when making a trade now does what for you? Not all that much more than if you did it in the summer.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. My problem is this: no one valued what you had enough, and that's your fault too. I mean, this is what you did. You signed Jeremy Grant to that contract and lost Dame. Now that
Anyway.
it's not. It's a rock, and that contract, by all experts, beyond me saying it from forever, is not it's a bad contract. No one wants it. He's not worth it. So the Robert Williams thing, like the only reason to get him was to trade him for a first-round draft pick. I mean, and you didn't. So can you do that in the offseason? Okay, maybe in the summer you can. You can't keep saying, well, we didn't make trades because the value wasn't there, and then say
Why?
try to make it like it's a good thing. Like, I get it. You don't want to dump things for nothing. Brogdon. Like, people talk about Brogdon turning into Denny. They didn't want Brogdon. They wanted the first-round draft pick. Like, Brogdon didn't. That wasn't
But the contract
Sure.
had value.
The space of it. But that is not.
Right.
That is not why the original thought of bringing Brogdon in was this is a piece to give a contending team before the deadline to bring in a high draft pick to build up resources. Right. They got what they got. The Blazers moving money off your roster to get with a pick, that's not that hard. Like, that's what no one will do.
Well,
No one will do it.
But moving forward, if
Well, I'm saying
a
the Jeremy
if a
Grant thing, that's probably what you're going to end up having to do.
right, and so that's why don't just dump it.
Right, but that means his value isn't what you said it was supposed to be. I mean, my thought is the reason why you signed Grant.
The CBA changed things too, but
fine, but you it's not like it was unheard of. It's not like they weren't in rooms and they didn't know. It wasn't like someone handed it to him and said, "I know you. This is completely out of the blue." I mean, that is the job. I'm not saying it's not hard, but Joe Cronin's job, he got the job because he was a cap expert. I'm just saying what you're describing, why they didn't make moves, I can agree with. What upsets me and what stinks for the team is the reason why you didn't make moves is because the people didn't value what you have. And I don't see
first round picks, right?
And that was the point, right? Or a young player. You got Denny. You moved Brogdon, at least. Now, again, I will argue that you basically figured out how to use him because you didn't move him before, right? So that wasn't you didn't get Brogdon to just be a salary. You thought he was going to be a pick that a contender, not the worst team in the NBA would value, right? I mean, I think we can all agree that Brogdon was picked up, former rookie of the year, a guy that the Blazers thought would be valued by a good team. And the opposite happened. The team that wanted to lose the most games and is doing a great job at tanking, wanted him. So that they probably thought Denny's good enough that we won't lose enough games to get in the Cooper Flag conversation. But we don't think of him as a star, and we're just starting at nothing. So we'll get the first round pick, and here's Denny for you. Right. We know he's good, but we don't think he's going to be, he's not going to transition our franchise to the next level like a Cooper Flag might or a top 3 pick might. Right. That's what upsets me is that I agree with you, like the people that are saying just make the trades to make the trades are wrong. But the problem is, so now you got stuff that no one wants.
Well, okay. It's not that no one wants. It's that no one wants at the level of compensation the Blazers would desire at this time. So
like good stuff.
Right. First round picks.
Right.
Or
that's what I'm saying. Like
I'm not going to give up a young, promising star that the Blazers might want for Grant at 30. I don't think anyone should have ever expected that. But
I don't know what they expected with Grant. I really don't, because I said it from the get-go.
They had to meet a salary floor, and they liked Grant, and they kept him. And there was initial feeling that he was going to help them be better than they expected to be when everything went absolutely kaput. But regardless, the thing at the end of the day is this. The same thing you did with Brogdon, you can do at some point with Williams, Grant, and if you feel like you're ready to move off of Simons, because you have the contract, and then the player themselves is going to have a certain amount of available value to the team they're getting, who's taking them, and then it could be a situation where you're either getting better compensation because their contracts are shorter, or you're attaching first-round picks to them like you did Brogdon and getting back something you covet. And you can't get that player back that you covet unless you have contracts to swap out. All these big moves we saw, contracts were flying everywhere, right?
Yep.
So you have to have contracts to be in that game, and then you have picks and swaps that apparently have value with the Bucks that you can dangle to attach to those. So that's why you keep them and don't just dump them.
But the trades that you're talking about, valuable players. I mean, even in the Mavs thing, it's star for star. Even Jimmy Butler went for a starter, an above average starter.
Yeah, it depends on the team and their needs and their desires. There's going to be a team out there that's going to take the bad contract and your picks to take a player off their hand that they can't win with. That's going to happen.
Right, but they're good. The players that got traded for this were good players.
I know, because because both teams wanted to continue winning. there's going to be situations. Okay, who'd the Bulls get for Levine?
Right. But the difference is someone wanted Levine to start.
No, I'm saying you're the team taking. I'm saying you're the team taking Levine.
They got a first round draft pick.
They got their own pick unprotected or completely released.
But
so now
they
didn't actually gain
it.
a pick. No, they weren't going to lose it if it was top 10 protected. They're going to be in the bottom 10. So they were never going to lose it. Literally, all they gained was if they accidentally, fell out of the top 10.
So they were just getting off
still
that
get
contract.
the pick.
They were getting off of that.
Right. So that's my point. So I'm just saying, if
that makes
the
my
Bulls
point.
had no interest in Levine, let me finish. The Bulls had no interest in Levine, but if that situation comes up again, and someone knows, okay, it's time for us to dump this star, we can't win now. We're going to dangle this out there. You have contracts to go get that and maybe sweeten it with a future pick. Now, boom, you get yourself a star. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that's the supposed silver lining that could be in play, right?
But that's not what I'm saying is that
it's not what originally. No, it's not the original. But you have to adjust and change and adapt or die. The CBA changed and everything's thrown out of whack, and teams are not just throwing around first round picks anymore. And so,
in the end, I would just to me. In the end, there was no way I would have traded Simons.
Well, again, it depends on what you're getting.
No, but I'm saying we know that they weren't getting 2 first round draft picks for him, which was the dream at one point. And then they weren't even getting one. So why would I trade a 25-year-old who's my best offensive player? And I still don't have a vision, anyone there to, go ahead of him.
Well, so, the thing is, there might have been a first round pick, but it could have been late. And then the contract you took back had 2 more years on it for a guy you do not want.
No, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't trade him. Right. It's not worth it.
Right.
I'd rather keep Simons.
Right. 100%. So,
and
anyway,
because I still don't know, I might need him. You know what I mean? Like if your goal is to be mediocre, he's going to be.
I don't think that.
I'm just saying next year. Yeah. Like I don't know we don't know where they're at, but if you don't want to be, if you decide that next year we're not tanking, because I mean, at some point you got to stop tanking. You can't tank 5 years in a row. Like then you just stink. Like at what point do you stop the tank? I mean, Chauncey Billups is not going to come back to tank again. You see what I'm saying? Like if they extend him for a year and they don't offer him a 5-year deal or a 3-year deal, he's going to walk.
They can't. Well, if they have the contractual control, they can pick up his option and he has
for
to
next
come
year.
Back. Right. The problem is if you do that and make him tank, well, that's just bad business.
Right. It makes you look crazy. Horrible. And he'll walk.
And if he comes back and he gets you 500, then he's proven to the world he can coach in a completely dysfunctional situation. He's out. He's gonna get a better offer somewhere else. He's gonna tell you guys, skip you. I'm out of here. You didn't take care of me. You didn't do right by me.
And let's be clear.
So yeah,
just because the Blazers have that option, let's not act like coaches and players with contracts can't push their way out. At some point, Chauncey could say enough.
Well, his agent, Andy Miller, is a part of Clutch Sports.
Right.
I mean, they have Scoot and they have Sharp and Grant. So yeah, I mean, at some point you're like, okay, you cannot either you extend them or you don't pick up the option.
Right.
Period.
Like,
and if you pick up his option,
playing it perfectly, but at some point he might say, let him go find another job. You know what I mean? And that's when, coaches and teams come to the agreement that they're not going to. Mutual agreement to part ways. That's the mutual agreement to part ways.
Yeah.
We don't pay you your whole contract. You don't make me stay here again. That's what my, and I feel that's where they're headed.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now imagine this. Let's say they let Chauncey walk. They bring in another coach and they dump some guys in the summer and then they go in to tank again next season. How dysfunctional would that look?
I mean, you'd have stuff to write about.
How absolutely dysfunctional would that look? So really, the problem for the Blazers right now is they painted themselves into a situation where if they say we've turned things around and we're ready to make a run at the playoffs, but we're going to go in a different direction with a different coach. Oh, okay. Well, then why did you make him stay and turn things around for you and complete some of the development you wanted to see, and then you just let him go anyway? Why didn't you just let him go last year so he could find a different job? And then you're saying that we're going to bring another coach in here to tank when you wasted an opportunity to tank this year to get into the top 3, but because you wouldn't do right by Chauncey, and then he went out and won more games than you ever saw coming, which blew that opportunity, but now you're going to chase that opportunity again next year with a different coach. So they almost have to bring him back and give him, a couple 2 or 3 year extension to let him see the rebuild through. Or just fire everybody and start over.
I mean, and to me, also, we haven't mentioned it, and I told you I'd mention it every time we talked about stuff like this. What's going on with the ownership? What is their actual plan? We have no idea because Bert and Jody they don't speak, so you have no idea. You can't interview them. You can't find out. We know it's in a trust. We know it's got to be sold eventually. We don't have an idea when. We do not know what they even want. Like, you're speculating.
It is absolutely 100% clear, without a doubt. They have no intention of selling this thing anytime soon. They don't need to. They don't have to. It's at the bottom of the list of everything in the trust that needs to be sold. It keeps accumulating value. A couple of years ago, supposedly, Phil Knight offered him $2.3 billion as a joke right now. They were smart not to take that. Phil Knight would have made a cool $1.5 billion in 2 years just by making that deal. So Jody Allen won that battle. And Bert Cole is having a lot of fun running the team from behind Joe Cronin. And I don't think he has any intention of giving up his hobby anytime soon. So I don't believe this team. I think I'll be retired before this franchise is sold.
Wow.
Unless someone comes up with some absolutely astronomical deal, which I've been saying the whole time. If Phil Knight really wants it, make them an offer they can't refuse, minus the dead horse, of course.
Wow. That
was a Godfather reference for anyone.
Yeah, I know. I know you
don't
want that in the
we
bag.
might have young listeners who are like, what does that mean? Fentress hates horses.
I feel I'm not, you know better than I do. My thought is eventually Adam Silver and the NBA will be like, enough. They don't like trusts. They don't like trusts. And the other owners don't like.
But what legally can they do?
Oh, well, I think they've shown they can put the pressure on ownership to sell. I just think they could, and they do.
So let me throw one more thing out there for you. The De'Aaron Fox situation should be extremely alarming to Blazers fans. And I might be projecting too much into the future, and just making too much of this. But that guy was their centerpiece. They traded Halliburton to build around Fox.
Yeah.
And then they got a lot better, and he became an all-star. And then all of a sudden, things didn't work out, and he supposedly wanted out. And now he's in San Antonio with Wemby. Who's to say that similar thing doesn't happen with Scoot and or Shaden inside the next few years? What if you build around those two and those two do become good and you think, oh man, we've turned the corner. These two guards are great. Everything's worked out. And then boom, one or both was like, yeah, I don't want to be here. And they push their way out.
See, while that stinks, I'd love to see that because that means they're at that level and we've at least seen some really good basketball
for a couple of years, I guess. But what's the point if you don't see it,
Well, I mean, look, I never. My thing was like, I understand why people want to break things up after being mediocre for a while. If you're the kind of ownership that knows how, that wants to really wants to win a title so badly. And under Paul Allen, he tried it. He tried multiple times to make that move. to get them over the top. But moving off Dame the way they moved off Dame, with no clear future piece, no ready, this is where we're going. I think it's totally unfair to Scoot, put that on him. But this is what they got to live with now. I mean, if they would have kept Dame, and heck, even if they would have traded for Tyler Hero, people could get mad all they want. That guy's a potential all-star.
He's an all-star. No, he is an all-star.
That's what I mean. I mean, like consistent
at the time, yeah.
Okay. And he might be averaging on this team 27. But this is where they are. And we talk about Chauncey. I don't know where Joe Cronin is with how they feel. Because if they do want to own this team forever, then Joe Cronin might not make sense.
There's no doubt in my mind that Joe is as much on any hot seat as Chauncey. Because if you're Joe and you're not being pressured as well to see some kind of improvement, you don't let what happened. That's the whole thing. The winning of the 10 out of 11 had to be allowed to happen. Because you can do things to prevent that from happening. And instead of going 10-1, you go, it's a hot stretch for you at
6-5
and 6, right? Still a nice little stretch. So, yeah, if you're Joe Cronin and your future's secure, you want that top 3 pick, man.
Again.
And so that's where the monkey wrench into this whole thing comes in. It's like, what, there's just too many people with, converging agendas to save their own ass that just don't mesh with what should have been taking place. Now let's end on a happy note.
Let's go.
Donovan Clingan.
20 rebounds, baby.
Dude,
20 rebounds.
Clingan, healthier, still has conditioning issues. Someone asked me in the email, how is Donovan Clingan not in shape? It's not that he isn't in shape. It's that he's not in 33, 34 minutes a night NBA shape. He's 20 years old. So he's not even old enough to buy alcohol, bro. He's 7'2", 280 is what he's listed.
He has not grown into his body yet.
He is still, exactly. He still has baby fat, right? Yep. He's still developing physically in terms of just understanding how to move his body. He's just to lug around 280 or 290 pounds like that. It's got to be exhausting, especially when you're not fleet of foot. So you're not a light. You're not a light like Shaq was. Shaq came in 38 minutes a night. Well, Shaq moved like a point guard. So his weight was proportionate enough and his athleticism and his build was proportionate enough where he can control that and move and do things it didn't. Whereas you can see Donovan's lumbering sometimes. So anyway, he's had a couple injuries which held back his conditioning.
And let's not forget, look at Shaq when he was 20 and then look at Shaq when he was 28.
Yeah.
I mean, they're two different people.
Right.
His head got muscles.
Yeah, but Shaq did come in about 260, 270? A little bit lighter maybe, right? He came in pretty big.
But he was huge and he was lumpy and he looked like a baby. No, he just looked like a baby.
But he was much
he's an athletic freak. There's a reason why Shaq is Shaq and others aren't. I've never been like Shaq, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it was crazy. But his body transformed into an unstoppable force.
Right. So anyway, Donovan got thrust into action because of injuries the last couple of games. He started last night, and he's playing against Jokic, man. And yes, Jokic won the battle. He had triple-double last night. 27, 15, and 10. He had 40 and whatever the other night. But Donovan went out there and put up 21 and 7. And then last night, 17 and 20. First Blazers rookie to get 20 rebounds in a game. And in 40 years, Craig, 1985, guess who it was? Late 1985.
20 rebounds in 1985.
Rookie. Who's a rookie in 84, 85 who could get 20 rebounds? He did it twice that season, too. Did it in February as well. Come on. 84, 85, 84 draft. That's not that hard. 84 draft. The most devastating draft choice in the history of the franchise.
Oh, Sam Bowie.
You know what's crazy? I went back and I looked at his game log.
He was
He
good.
has nice games that year, man.
So if you ever look back, and I have, you look at Sam Bowie's numbers, he had really good years. And he had less injuries than you thought.
Years. He had solid years.
I'm just saying, he the bust compared to Greg Oden.
Oh,
it's way different. He had a career. But Michael Jordan. Yeah, still a terrible pick, but I still do what Bobby Knight did. I would have played him in center. Here, I'll say this. I don't think you could expect more from what Klingon's doing. I mean, I just don't think you can. I mean, he makes his free throws. He blocks shots. He rotates well as fast as he can. He dumb fouls people, but he fouls them really, really hard. And he gets 20 rebounds and 17 points at altitude too. Like, that's hard to stay in the game. And
second half, he had I think he had 10 offensive rebounds for the game, a bunch in the second half when they had outscored Denver in second chance points, like 14-6. So he was killing it on the offensive glass, which is huge,
plays
obviously.
his butt off.
Yep.
I mean, he plays his butt off.
He plays hard.
And he gets so upset. They're down like 23, and he doesn't think it's a foul on him, and he's like so mad. I'm like, that's right. But I told you, Summer League got the 5-second violation. It was like winning the NBA Finals. Like, it. And he's won 2 championships. And this is one thing I know about my Jersey brethren. If you play for Danny Hurley, a Jersey guy like that, you better play hard in practice. You better play hard in every game, or he will rip you a new one. I mean, so he knows how to be coached hard and is not afraid of it. So,
right.
He just doesn't have that. You look at him and you're like, well, he's really, really doing the best he can. But I don't think anyone should be disappointed in Klingon. And the fact that he can not foul out like in 12 minutes against Joker, I thought that was for sure going to happen when the game started. I was like, this guy's not going to make it to the first quarter because, I mean, Jokic just fakes. I mean, that's the best thing about being 7'2". He does not jump. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, no, I'm not going to fall for it because I don't ever jump. Even you, I don't need to jump because you don't jump. So I just put my hand up. But he just, to me, did a remarkable job getting schooled by the best player in the NBA and not looking. I mean, he gave up a triple-double and over 40 points. And we're going, he did really well. Like that's not easy. And it's because...
Well, to be fair, most of the damage the first night was done against Ayton, but go ahead.
Right. But I'm just saying, it's not like it was like, oh, he held him to 15 and 8. No,
right.
The guy killed him. But, I mean, what do you expect? A 20-year-old against I'm starting to freak out about where I have to rank Jokic in my offensive players that I've seen in my life, because it's so ugly. I don't want to rank it where it goes, but you can't stop him. And when the guy's averaging, 30, 10, and 10, whatever the hell he does every night, you're like, well, I'm sorry, Michael, you're the greatest ever, but like you didn't put stats like that up at center.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying he's better than Michael. I'm just saying that you have to, but you have to sit there and look at those numbers and see that he's unguardable and he's won a championship. So it's not like Russell Westbrook where you're like, oh, their numbers, or James Harden even. No, the dude is the MVP and he won a championship already. I don't know. It's just blowing my brain because I'm like, no, that's hideous. Oh, that went in. Holy crap. He's got 40, 17, and 12. That's ridiculous. Oh, and they won.
So here's what's funny about this. And I'm not taking anything away from him necessarily. But the points and rebounds from a center, we've seen that before. That's not impressive. What makes it jump out is the assists. However, in a lot of ways, the assists are the product of the style and era. And just take 3-point shooting alone. He can have the ball and kick it out to Murray for a 3. Well, Kareem can never kick it out to someone who's going to shoot 10 threes a game. So
yes,
you're
but
getting a
they
few
run
assists that way.
The reason why the system is the way it is because of him.
But everyone's running the same situation where you're shooting 30 to 43s. What I'm saying is that you're able to get assists off of threes that you couldn't get in the past.
Last night, he held the ball without moving for like 20 seconds. And then he turned and fired to a guy wide open for a dunk.
Right, from the perimeter.
I know, but I'm saying like...
Right, so centers in the past didn't operate in the perimeter because it wasn't the style of play.
Kareem is disrespected all the time on where he belongs as a scorer. And he was not asked to do it. But, I mean, Kareem wasn't dribbling down the court, running the offense through, like, from the top.
Because he wasn't raised to do that. Not because he couldn't
maybe.
have done
Kareem
that.
was amazing.
Had Kareem grown up today, he'd be doing the same stuff Wemby's doing.
He'd be doing
exactly.
He'd be doing the sky hook though. From 3. He'd be doing the hook from 3 though.
I'm just saying, it's just someone a while back. He's a big Bay Area guy, Golden State fan, and he was going off about how stupid and arrogant the coaching was back then. How come they didn't have Ewing and Olajuwon and those guys shoot threes? They were so dumb. So it shows how back. And I was like, whoa. You have to take your brain and stick it back in the 70s, in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and understand that the three-point line was adopted as a gimmick to allow teams to have a better shot to come back late. It was never adopted to shoot 30
and also to move them off those unstoppable centers.
Well, but teams weren't shooting them. Teams were only taking 5 or 6, 7, 8 a game, and that was usually to try and come back. So you weren't going to take your big, your Kareem averaging 30 and 16, who's got the sky hook, and now have him shooting threes, or Ewing or Olajuwon. And those guys didn't grow up with a 3-point shot as kids,
of course.
Whereas today, every kid is growing up shooting threes, and then
you couldn't play zone.
For a lot. I mean, no. But I still think this is way more important. A kid at 6 or 7, you don't necessarily know they're going to be 7 feet.
Right.
But they're growing up playing like they're going to be a guard, playing like they're going to be Curry and shooting threes. And so they're developing all that skill, and all of a sudden, boom, they're 6'10". But they developed all that skill. So they're a stretch 4, a stretch 5. Yep. That's about evolution, not about having the ability or the talent. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I agree. Patrick Ewing.
Kareem today would be, doing the same thing.
Patrick Ewing didn't shoot the ball at all at Georgetown. Dunked block shots because that's what John Thompson wanted, and it won. Right. He got to the NBA. He had the best turnaround jumper he became one of the best shooting centers in NBA history.
Yeah, his mid range, his fadeaway, his
fadeaway turnaround,
beautiful,
unstoppable.
Yeah,
and he actually shot a few threes at some point, and they looked good. If Patrick,
he shot 0.1 a game.
I'm just saying, like he wasn't. It didn't look.
Let me see how many he shot. Let me see how many he shot.
Many,
for his life.
Not many. But I'm just saying, like he had the ability to shoot. Right, and that's for back then. Shaq didn't shoot that many.
One year he took 21 and made 6, 29%.
It didn't look embarrassing. He could shoot,
had he grown up doing that?
No, that's what I'm saying.
He shot 35%.
I agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. All right, we've done. Yeah. Now we're going back.
Talking about you. We're talking about
defending our age. We're like, well, I was a slug. We didn't know how to shoot threes. We only went inside. There was no zone.
Line. All right,
we gotta end this because I gotta go kick people off my lawn.
We'll be back after the break at some point. Take care. Thanks for listening.